Get a sign-in sheet if you guys want to sign in.
Recording in progress.
Thanks. Just give it another minute for these people to get their spot.
There's another sign-in sheet here. if you'd
Oh,
like to,
thanks.
please. Yep. Thank you.
We almost had to cancel the meeting. You didn't show up. Sure.
Good afternoon. My name is Dave Condon. I'm the Director of Natural Resources for the town of Yarmouth. Welcome to our Ways to the Water public meeting number 1. This is a process that we started a few months back, and we'll give you the overview, just so you guys know the plan for this evening. We'll give you the overview of the project, why we're doing it, what we anticipate the outcome will be, and then what the next steps will look like. Tonight, I'm joined by Gemma Kite. She is our consultant from Horsley Witten. They're doing all the a lot of the field work and the actual legal access studies and assessment of each townway to water. Brittany DiRienzo from Conservation, Catherine Brooks from our office in Natural Resources, and Connor Clifford from Engineering at DPW. So we've got the plan will be, we'll give you a quick overview of, again, what we're doing, why we're doing it, and then we'll kind of open it up so people can mingle around. You'll see all around the room we have draft maps of all the townways, and again, they're draft. I can't stress that enough. There are sites on some of these that may or may not make the final cut. Some could be added, some could be removed. It's still a work in progress. Just keep that in mind as we go through this afternoon. And you'll have an opportunity to ask questions, and the most important thing is it will drive you all night. We're going to drive you towards our survey, which Gemma will show us here in a little bit, and that's how we're going to gather all our data. So this whole process started, Natural Resources, we identified a townway to water up on Driftwood Lane, up in Yarmouthport, down to Fallons Pond. There's a set of stairs that runs down to the water in terrible shape. We had to close it. It was unsafe. So we went to the Community Preservation Committee looking for funding to replace it. We went to the CPC, and they asked some really good questions. They're like, well, how can you guarantee that this is the town way that's in the worst shape? And we said, well, to be honest, we can't. We know this one's in bad shape, but we can't guarantee it's the worst one. So they recommended that we amend our application from Driftwood Lane specifically to conduct a town-wide assessment of every single townway to water and identify the condition. It started with condition, but then it turned into legal access and ownership and all that. So anyway, we reapplied, and they funded that. We did make some repairs to Driftwood to make it at least accessible. It's not great, but it's at least open, and we are anticipating that this survey will help us identify that is one that needs some love, and we'll be asking for funding down the road to repair that further. But either way, it is open. So we went out to bid, and we went with one of our consultants that we use all the time. That's on the town list of approved engineering and consulting firms, and they gave us a proposal that really outlined some stuff that we hadn't even thought about, and gave us some better options than we had really ever considered. So the plan will be, so far, we're probably, and you'll see it again on our timeline here, but we're probably 25% into the project. And this is our portion where we gather public input. We've identified what we think are all the townways. Again, it's 63-ish, which is remarkable that there's that many. That number could go up and down a little bit depending on how the legal access stuff all shakes out. But as of right now, it's somewhere around 60 will be our final number. The contractor has gone through and done deed research on every parcel to determine legal access. They've given us a write-up on how and when these properties have been conveyed to the town, whether the town purchased them, eminent domain, whatever the case may be, or they were donated, or they're just part of a road layout. So they've gone through and they've conducted that legal access summary. We have a draft form of that for all 60 whatever sites. And then the next step in the process will be gathering public input, which we're going to ask for your input tonight. You'll give us your input in person, but also, again, we'll drive you to the survey because we need to have all of our data in one location to be able to turn out the product in the end. Public input, public survey, and then this summer, in July, Horsley Witten and town staff will be doing site visits to all 60 whatever sites. We'll be identifying what uses we see there, what amenities we may or may not have at each location. Amenities being, some places have parking signs, some don't. Some have striped lines, some don't. Some have a dock, some don't. And we just will identify that across the entire town for each location. And then identify what uses we see going on there. Do we see people shellfishing? Do we see them fishing? Do we see nobody around? To identify what sites are used the most frequently and by who and for doing what. After we do the site visits, then all that data will be compiled into one report that Horsley Witten will produce that will identify the condition of each site, and then they will recommend the 3 that are probably in the worst shape or that require the most attention, and they'll give us sort of a draft conceptual ideas of what we could do to repair them that will give us sort of a plan moving forward for what funding we ask for what specific sites. And again, credit to the Community Preservation Committee because they did ask that question and we didn't have a great answer as to why we were starting with driftwood other than we knew it was broken. So we'll have a pretty cut and dry list of what things we should try and address and in what order and to be able to go forward in the future asking for funding from the town as we see fit. What else? I mean, that's the basic overview. Gemma, do you want to talk the survey?
The website?
Yeah, let's start. Yeah.
I can use the-
Yeah, sure. So hopefully, I guess I'm great. I'm really happy to see the turnout that we have here because I wasn't so sure. We didn't have a ton of time to advertise this one. We didn't have all of our stuff up and ready to share. So we did hang a bunch of flyers. I'm sure some people saw those. We made Facebook posts and that kind of stuff. We sent out emails to all of our mooring and slip customers trying to get the word out. So I'm glad to see as many people as we have. And I think this is the whole point. So what is a townway to water? And poor Gemma and I went back and forth 1,000 times on what the perfect definition is for a townway to water. And we couldn't really land on one, but a publicly accessible water access point. And that truly is the crux of it. It's a public property that is intended for people to access the water. It's not a beach. It's not necessarily a boat ramp. It could be a dead-end road that terminates at the water. It could be a fishing pier. It could be a landing of some sort. So those are the intended uses. You're accessing the water to fish or shellfish or go bird watching or getting on your dinghy to get out to your mooring or whatever. Those are the intended uses of a townway. I understand a lot of them have sand and they get used like a beach, but that's not their main purpose. We're not going to go around kicking people off saying that they can't use it as a beach, but the main purpose is accessing the water for a mooring or shellfishing or fishing, whatever.
And you'll see that in the mapping that none of the beaches that are designated as town beaches are not included as the sites that we're looking at this project.
Right, yeah, so we did not include any of the town beaches. They're a separate entity. So again, we talked about this. The goal is a conditions assessment, legal access assessment, and then, one thing I did not mention is going to be an interactive GIS-based map that will end up on the town website. Horsley Witten will produce that, turn it over to the town, and the town will maintain it going forward. So you'll be able to go onto our website. The map will come up. You'll be able to scroll it or zoom in on each specific site. You'll be able to click on it, find out a little info about it. You'll see where it is, and that's something that we'll carry forward with us on our website. And we're kind of looking at it. We're also going to get that physical report where it's going to be like a handbook. As far as we're concerned, it'll be a handbook for all the townways, for any projects we're doing in the future. We can flip right to our whatever page it is and identify what may or may not be required for the project. Again, I think we talked about some of this, but document the uses, the legal access stuff I talked about, and a conditions assessment, and then again, identify potential improvements and a ranking structure for where we should seek funding for first. We threw this in here just because it comes up a lot about private property rights. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, to be quite honest. I mean, this is another discussion, but as far as it relates to townways, we're talking town property extends into the water, and that's what we're focused on here today. If anybody wants to talk about this stuff, we certainly can, but this is not our main focus here for this. So the survey, back to that, the main reason for the survey is to have a standardized way to collect data. The only way that Horsley Witten can put all this, can quantify it all, is if we have meaningful data, and that's going to come from, we had between the field form and the public input, we're going to come up with, our plan forward, and that's all based on the survey. Again, I said it earlier, but tonight, and just so everybody knows, we do have a second one of these meetings, but it's the same meeting, just another opportunity for people to come. So this one is not going to be any different than the one on June 10th, just so you know. So I think the next will be Gemma can talk about the survey and how that works. And we have the little blue flyers up here. If you saw these when you came in, you can take one. It's got the QR code. You can scan it. It brings right to the DNR website where there's a link to the survey. We also have a couple of laptops tonight. If you don't want to try and figure it out at home, you're welcome to fill out the survey here on our laptop, if that's easier.
Yeah, so thanks.
I don't like mics, but I'll use it. So thank you for that. So we created this survey to provide a consistent way to get your input. We want to hear from you how you experience using these sites. How do you use the site? What challenges do you face when you're accessing the site? What successes do you experience when you're accessing the site? And are there any improvements that you would like to see at a site? Some examples of the type of information that we're looking for include, it's confusing whether this is a town way to water because there's no signage. There's nothing that indicates that this is a public site. Another example is more parking would be appreciated because every time I come here, there's no parking available. So those are the kinds of examples of information that we're looking for. And how are we going to use this information? So unless you would like to provide your contact information, all of the information you provide in this survey is anonymous. And what we're going to do is collate all that information. It will become a part of the public record, the final document for this project. But we're also going to use it to help us prioritize the sites. So if we get a lot of feedback about one particular site, that's going to kind of raise a red flag to us. Oh, there's something going on here. There's a lot of people talking about it. Or if we hear a lot of really good things about a particular site, that may be a great role model for other sites. So how do you access this survey? Let me see. I'm just going to go to the town website. So this is the Natural Resources website here. We also have a QR code to access this on your own as well. But if you go to the left-hand side, there's a ways to water assessment And then if you scroll down, there's this project website and survey form. So this brings us to this page, which is what we call a story map. Dave had indicated at the end of this project, we're going to have a nice mapping associated with all of the town waste to water. This is kind of the foundation for that. So that was just what we were scrolling down. And if you go all the way to the public input, there is a interactive map that shows up. You can also click on this link and pop it out into its own screen. And just like we were talking about, this is interactive. So I can zoom in, I can zoom out, I can pan around, and I can look for which site I'm interested to submit feedback on. If you don't know the site name, that's okay. I think the town tried to pick the site names that were most commonly used. But if it doesn't come up or something, that's okay. You can also search by water body or by street name. So I'm gonna do that. I like Fallon's Pond, so let's search by Fallon's Pond. And you can see it comes up, okay, there's a waste to water site called Fallon's Pond Road. There's the water body, Fallon's Pond, and then there's roads. So let's just go ahead and click on the water body, and it zooms me right in. So there are multiple ways that you can interact with this map to find your site. Let's just pick, sounds like Driftwood Lane is quite popular, but let's pick Fallon's Pond Road. So this is the site that I want to provide feedback on. So that's good. And then the survey is on the right-hand side. So you have to select which site in the drop-down menu that you would like to provide feedback on. Again, this is a drop-down list, or you can start searching for it. So if I want to search for Fallon's, and there it is, it pops right up. So again, if you don't know the name of the exact site, you can kind of pan around the map, find it, and then input it into this field. Okay, so now that I know that I'm submitting feedback for Fallon's Pond Road site, let's get into the actual survey. So the first few questions ask, how do you use the site? What kind of things do you use or do there? And this is a select all that apply. So we've got fishing, car top boating, sailing, shellfishing, swimming, beach, scenic viewing, and other. And please note that other is a write-in. So if you do select other, you have the opportunity to write in exactly how you use it. The next question is asking, how do you see other people using it? Obviously, when you go to some of these sites, there are going to be other people using it. So how do you see other people using it? Again, same selections as the previous question, and then there is an other to write in other uses that you see. How popular do you consider this site, from 1 being not very popular to 5 being very popular? This is all relative. My very popular rating is probably different from Dave's very popular rating. We're just trying to take a temperature here of how we think popularity sort of spreads throughout all of these sites. And how would you like to use this site in the future? So in other words, is there anything that you cannot do that you would, or not comfortable doing, that you would like to be able to do? And this is an explain question. So we ask you to kind of explain what your response is here. Next, we get into what challenges and successes are you experiencing at these sites? So again, examples of that, a success would be there's clear signage indicating that this is a public way to water and that it's available for everyone in the public to use it. A challenge, an example of a challenge would be there's not a safe path for me to walk from where I park my car down to the water. So the question here starts us off with, what challenges do you have in accessing this site, if any? And we've categorized these into public safety, environmental, accessibility, lack of signage, limited or no parking, or other. And again, other is a write-in field so that you can explain what your choice is there. Some people might ask, what is public safety? We talked a little bit about this. I don't know if you want to explain a little bit more about this. I feel like this is perhaps like a lighting issue or, a safety there's just, perhaps some riffraff that you've seen or other things that you've experienced in the past. Environmental is more like erosion concerns. So there's a lot of, water that's rushing down this site and causing gullies and eroding the soil, things like that. And then we have a text box so you can describe those challenges further. So if you'd like to give us more detail on what you've experienced, we would love to hear that. And then what aspects of the site are successful? What makes it easy for access and keeps bringing you back to this site? And again, we've sort of grouped this into those same categories with the other as a write-in field, so you can give us that selection. And then we ask you to describe those successes in more detail so we can have that information. We also ask, as the final part of the survey, what, if any, improvements would you like to see for the access for this site? So if you have any ideas about how access can be improved, we would love to hear them. I fully intend that we might take this data and we may see great examples or great suggestions for improvements from the public, and I can't wait to see them. And then the last question here is, do you have any concerns about impacts of increasing public access to this site? So I know we all like our hidden spots, but this is asking more about, perhaps your driveway is abutting or close to this site, and you're concerned about someone parking you in, or you're very concerned about, the sensitive environment of the pond, lake, river, whatever it may be. So if you have any concerns about increasing public access, let us know. And then optional, if you would like to provide your name and contact information, you are welcome to do so, but this is optional. And you can hit the submit button without providing this information. I know some people like to have a follow-up, or they may want to stay involved in the project. So this is another way that you can provide us your information. Don't forget to hit submit, and you can submit as many forms for as many sites as you would like. So if you're someone who likes to go to 15 different sites, please submit us one form per site. We would love to hear all of your feedback that you have. Just make sure that you select the correct site name before you enter your information. This is now live, and it will remain open for the entire summer. I think we're going to try to close it somewhere around right after Labor Day, so that we can be able to collate all the information, analyze it, and have it be a part of our report. So tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your family, and again, we have QR codes around the room to get to this survey, or you could just let us know if you need that information.
So I think, so I don't want to get into questions on each specific site when we have the whole group here, but are there any questions on like the assessment in general, how the survey works, or anything we've talked about so far before we get into site specific?
Yes, I've looked at the survey. It's wonderful. It's very comprehensive. I want to compliment you for, first of all, doing the study, and second of all, providing an opportunity for those residents here to comment. Is it possible technically to reduce the size of the map so that the survey itself can be enlarged? I had trouble on my iPad trying to look to I'm just...
Yeah, no.
Technical, Ned. I'm hoping you can help us.
I appreciate that feedback. We will look into that. I'm wondering if we can even pop out the survey separate from the map as well. So yes, we'll look into that right away. Thank you.
Anything else on the assessment or our general plan here for the townways? Sure.
Just go over one more time how you get to the survey if you're not using the QR code, because if you want to say, use your computer to enter.
Sure. So, yeah, so if you're not using the QR code, it's right on if you go to the Town of Yarmouth website, yarmouth.ma.us, and then you can click on the top where it says government, and then departments, and then scroll down to natural resources.
Oh, it's alphabetical. There you go.
And then it's the first option there on the left. We'll bring you to the assessment page with the link to the survey.
I also included a link further down that if you didn't want to go through the whole website,
Oh, right here.
right there will take you directly to the survey link, so you don't have to go and scroll on another.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm sorry, there was one. Yeah.
Yeah, so the site-specific like survey, it's very neat and focused data, but we're getting a lot of residents to a web page without getting any like generic survey data on how often they like access water or what they would like to see at any general access point. It's just like I go to the waterways that are near me, but if there was like a special feature of one further away, maybe I would also travel to that one. So it feels like a missed opportunity to not have more generic questions of like all-encompassing. What would you like to see in your access to water?
Yeah, that's actually that's a good point. Like a general, how do you use the water? How do you access the water now? Separate from each individual site, right? I mean, I think the second part of your question there, talking about other sites further away that might offer more stuff, you'll certainly have that at the end of this with the interactive map. But I understand your question about maybe we should have that up front, and that's a good point. I don't know if that's something we could add like a general. It's tough. I guess we'd have to talk about how that would work on the survey side. If that, whether you'd collect the same data too many times, I guess we'd have to talk about that.
Yeah.
I understand the question, and it definitely makes sense, but we'd have to talk about it and look into it. Any other? Yeah, sorry.
Just an idea, this is wonderful that you're doing the survey. It tends to be a silo, though, in terms of natural resources is in charge of this. I was wondering if you could get the Yarmouth Historical Society involved, because if you Bing or Google town waste to water, you get a lot of interesting history, especially in other states where there's no access, none. Private property, bars, one, swimming, bathing, sitting, fishing, etc. This is a unique resource for the town of Yarmouth. I never realized how many.
Neither did we.
Sure. But it would be wonderful if someone could codify this from sort of historical standpoint. What did our forefathers have in mind here? Obviously, pretty scratchy ground. Access to the water was key. Fishing, I'm sure, fowling. But it might be of interest to other people from a history standpoint, and obviously how it evolved today.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. That's a good comment. Yeah, I like that.
Can you tell us, how are you reaching out to residents in the town in order to, so that they know this project is ongoing and the survey is available?
Well, so.
Do you have them talk into a microphone?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Sorry. Yes. Oh, we're going to get you with the microphones from now on. So the question was, how are we getting this info out to the public and to let them know that this is happening and the survey is happening? So a couple ways. I presented this at the select board a couple weeks ago, just giving them a 30,000-foot, or Julian and I from our Waterways Committee chair, who I totally should have acknowledged in the beginning and didn't. Julian Mallet, the chair of our Waterways Committee. So our Waterways Committee is our committee that's standing behind natural resources doing this project. I should have mentioned him. Sorry, Julian. So anyway, Julian and I presented at the select board meeting a couple weeks ago to try and get the word out there. I think this meeting, you're probably all going to go tell a friend how great we are and how excited you are about this project, so that will help. We have a second meeting coming up on the 10th, and I'll be presenting at the select board with Gemma again in the fall. But we didn't hang up a flyer at every single site, but we hung up about 40 or 50 of them at the majority of the sites that are the most frequently trafficked, with the link to the survey. So we're doing our best to get the word out there. We're pushing on our social media. We sent out, Catherine sent out 600 or 700 emails yesterday about it, just to our user group, to spread the word. So if there's any other ways you can think to get the word out there, please, by all means, let us know.
It's also posted at the public meeting and conservation agenda.
Brittany also shared it on the conservation agenda with her commission and at their public meeting as well. So we're trying to get the word out there. Any other questions about the project in general? All right, so I think this is going to be a little discombobulated, I think, but I think everybody's probably everybody here has a site in mind that they want to talk about. So there's whatever, 5 of us that will kind of bounce around and try and answer whatever questions we can. There could be some of us that don't have the right answers and we'll point the other direction, so bear with us. But if you guys want to get up and walk around and check out, we have the town-wide map and then each individual sort of location around the room here. And any, oh yeah, you better talk about that part.
Oh, so we have an interactive part if you're willing to participate. So there's these little dots. If you can grab one dot and put it next to the site that you like to use the most on these 4. So this is the overall map. This is just for perspective, but these 4 are broken this big figure down into the smaller 4 figures. So grab a dot and put it next to the site that you like to frequent the most. And then green is for good things. So if you can put the number of the site on the sticky note and then whatever good thing you'd like to say about it. And orange and perhaps red, if we need more, will be challenges. So again, write the number of the site, and to find the number, you can just use the key that's at the top of the figure here for the site. So again, write your site name or site number, and then what challenge you would like to identify.
You mentioned that the surveys are going to wind down the end of around Labor Day or so, but what's the overarching time frame to determine which projects will be invested in?
So that was a good question. We actually didn't make it that far down the... So this is our project schedule. So you can see where we are now. We're holding the public meetings end of May, beginning of June. Field assessments, like I said, are in July. They'll start crunching numbers from August through the fall. The public survey, again, will remain open until around Labor Day. And then by the time October, November rolls around, we'll have our final report. And then at that point, once we identify what sites we need to address and in what order and what severity and what cost, then we'll, at that point, I don't know if we'll make our first request for any funding for next town meeting or if it would be maybe fall town meeting in 26. But either way, we'll start with capital requests from that point on for whatever site improvements we need. That's kind of the... This is going to be a multi-year project, obviously. I mean, this is just truly... This is a big undertaking, but this is just the first step in a real... I mean, the Select Board has made it clear that they're evaluating town parcels all over the place for all different uses, make sure we're maximizing everything that we possibly can. And this is just another piece of that, really. This is going to be a multi-year process to really hammer out some issues and try and get them addressed.
I was wondering, when you're doing the field assessments, if there's an opportunity to engage the local community at those sites and invite them to participate while you're there doing that, as opposed to saying, hey, this would be a great beach because you think it would be, but other folks can tell you history that it's not a good beach, or there's too many kids here, or lots of parking, or all kinds of things. So trying to engage some local folks with all different opinions during the field assessment might be something to consider.
So I don't know that we'll be able to necessarily reach out to people ahead of time to say what sites we're going to be visiting on certain days. But when we're there visiting, we being us, the town staff, and the Horsley Witten staff, will certainly interact with folks who are there.
Yeah.
It's
Or like you've gone and posted, you could post Thursday you're coming.
Right, we could do that. We could say we're going to be doing site visits, this week, but we can't guarantee when we're going to be where.
Not specific sites, but something that I've noticed as a general issue is that a lot of these townways to water have been neglected. Meaning that you can't even get to them. There's natural vegetative encroachment, and then there's also sort of barriers that have happened over the years that prevent access. Are your plans going to include the town actually going down and figuring out where the town property is, creating those lines and figuring out, what needs to be done to increase access to them. Because as was mentioned, townways to water are an incredibly valuable resource for the town of Yarmouth. And public access is critically important to accomplish that. So fundamentally, if the town owns property, the town should maintain that property that it owns in order to be able to preserve and protect that access.
Sure. So let me speak to that, and if I miss anything, stop me at the end. But so as far as the townway, so I've been talking a lot about money, right, for improvements in townways, but the vast majority of our townways are dead ends with a trail that goes down to the water. So those don't take any money to clean up with a pair of hedge clippers. So, and conservation's been great about that. If we're maintaining a pre-existing path down to a townway, Brittany and her staff have been great about letting us upkeep that. So that's stuff that we'll identify with the survey. Because I mean, I can't tell you. We've certainly never gone and visited all 60 sites in a matter of a week or two. We don't. I mean, we visit them as we have to. But through this, we'll identify simple things like access is impeded by vegetation, or somebody put up a fence, or whatever. And that's stuff we can address right away in-house. Obviously, no cost. So that, to answer that part of the question, that should be pretty simple for a lot of the sites that are truly the unimproved dead ends. As far as the property boundaries go, the legal access summary is identifying ownership of the parcel, not necessarily identifying property boundaries per se, unless it's explicitly written in the deed, which, I mean, often at times they are, but might not be quite as easy to understand as it should be. A lot of these property boundaries are road layouts from 1920, and, it says about, in the deed, and it doesn't give it exact numbers, and references and all that are kind of fuzzy. So we're not going to be identifying or marking boundaries per se. That being said, the legal access summary will give us a better idea where the boundaries are, and we can address them on like a site-by-site basis. A lot of them, like I know you're down Hyannis Park, I mean a lot of those are dead ends, so the town property is the road layout. So it's the width of the road plus maybe 10 or 12 feet on either side, and that's it. That's the town, and it's a straight line. It's pretty easy to identify. A lot of them will be like that. Some of the ones that are kind of funny, there will be a bit more of a lift. But I think this is, again, kind of late breaking news. I think with Horsley Witten, we may be able to survey some of the sites that are a little bit more questionable, or we don't have perfect boundaries. We may have enough money in the budget to survey at least a few of them just to have an idea. But a lot of them should be pretty straightforward. Was there anything I missed?
You got it.
All right, cool. Anything else? All right, so,
One over here.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for a great presentation. I'm just wondering, while this is all taking place, and as you said, it's going to be a multi-year type of a project, we have townways to water now that are very accessible but not identified. I'll give you an example, Fallon's Pond Road. Okay, there's a great access down there. I've only been living here since '79, and I just found out about it last year. So
don't tell anybody. I like that one too. That's where I launched my boat.
That's what bothers me. So is there you mentioned money in the budget to put some signs up saying townway to water, like out on Setauket in that case, or any other area like that?
Yeah, I suppose we haven't really talked about like street signs leading to a townway. I mean, our first hurdle is just marking the actual townways at the site, and that always runs into challenges too. We marked. I see Ellie back there. I'm sure she knows this. We marked the townway to water on River Street, on Bass River, and 3 days later the sign was gone. We put up another sign. 3 days later, sign was gone. So then we put it up so they can't take it off. So like we have challenges there, but yes. So we do want to mark all the sites in some fashion, whether it's going to be at the site or I don't know about street signs leading to it, but that would be great if we can get that far. And again, I think, like, back to Brian's question there a minute ago, I keep talking a lot about money, but I think a lot of these things, the vast majority of these sites, because they are unimproved, will be simple fixes like trimming the hedges, putting up a sign or two. And I think, obviously, that's stuff that won't take multiple years.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to put the mic down, and you guys want to mingle through the sites, grab a dot and grab a Post-it note, green ones hopefully, because you're so happy with them, and ask us any questions.
And if anyone wants to fill out a survey tonight, we have laptops available to do that.
And Paul wants to see you after this. Paul wants to see you in his office. Yeah, something.
I gotta put it there, because I put it on that one.
Yeah, but I didn't. Okay.
I just go to the search.
Recording stopped.
This is your favorite place.